is head coach of the Cal Poly Beach Volleyball team, Todd Rogers. Hello, Coach Rogers.
Hey, CJ, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I think the last time we talked, you were just getting ready to start your 5th year last year in February, and then screeching halt, it all stopped. I do want to talk about your big weekend this weekend, going 3-1 in the first weekend of your 2021 season. But before we do, I do want to step back and just hear how it went down for you, because the listeners here in San Luis Obispo really like to know what happened to each team and all the coaches and how they dealt with COVID when it hit, I can't believe it, 11 months and 3 weeks ago. Where were you? Were you with the team? How did it go down that you found out COVID was shutting you down?
We were actually in the middle of practice, and I had to leave practice for a department-wide meeting in Mott Gym. So we were literally practicing on our brand new courts outside. I told the team, hey, keep practicing. I have a meeting right now. I don't know what's going to go on, but keep practicing, doing what you're doing at this point in time until we get final word as far as what's going on. And at the end of that meeting, we were told, everything was being shut down, and I raised my hand and I asked, hey, do I need to go tell those girls we're done practicing right now? And the answer was yes. And it was a very sad moment, to say the least, and walking outside and seeing kind of all balls drop to the sand, look over at me and kind of looking at my face, trying to read my demeanor, if you will. It was kind of a depressing moment, to be honest with you. And most of them read me pretty well and were like, we're done, aren't we? And I said, yeah, we're done. Pack up the balls, and that's it. And we'll zoom it all out and figure out where we're going to go from here. But very sad.
When you did find out, and then the NCAA gave everybody in spring sports another year, besides Tori Van Winden transferring to Florida State for her master's program, what happened roster-wise with you? Did anyone stay that used their extra year, or did everyone continue on forward with their graduation?
Emily Sunny, who's a local product out of AG High, she was actually planning on taking her last quarter in the fall, but was planning on studying abroad in Spain. And obviously COVID cut that as well. So she and I had a call, and I said, hey, if you'd like, you could extend your stay through winter quarter. And you still have 12 units that you have to take to graduate. So you could take 8 of those in the fall and 4 other ones that are, random class, and then finish up in the winter quarter, as the NCAA allows you to do that and still compete through the spring quarter or a portion of the spring quarter if you're finishing up your degree. So Emily decided to stay, and she's our ones blocker, total stud. Unfortunately, we did lose Tori, as you mentioned, because she really wanted to do a sports management grad program, and FSU has a really good one, and Cal Poly has none. So I understood that, helped facilitate it for her. And then I had 2 gals that ended up graduating. One went on to chiropractic school, and another one went to get her master's at another institution, but is not playing.
He is Todd Rogers. He's not the video game gamer, and he's not the behavioral scientist. He is the gold medalist, Olympian, and head coach of the Cal Poly Beach Volleyball program. You did have an incredible experience at the new courts, the new complex on campus with the 5 courts, and it was only supposed to fit 250 fans, but I was there, and there were, I'm guessing, there were over 1,000 people watching the epic opening of that complex on campus last year. Talk about that experience, looking at this amazing center that you helped bring to campus, and then only getting to use it once, but that once was amazing.
It really was a fantastic event. The Center of Effort Challenge had LMU and completely forgetting who. Pepperdine, and both of those matches went to literally the 3rd game in the deciding duel, and we won 3-2 in pretty insane battles. You were right, I think there were over 1,000. Someone's count was around 1,100, roughly 1,200. It had a riotous atmosphere. It was cold, but people were still staying there. One gal on the team who's been around for quite some time, Tia Merrick, 2-time All-American, said this is the most fun I've ever had at an event, most electric atmosphere I've ever experienced. And kudos to Bill Swanson for being a real driving force behind building those courts, and then also the Center of Effort Challenge as he was the driving force behind creating that event too. So both the coaches, let me put it this way, both coaches came up to me and said, "Whenever you want us back, we're here." And I went, "Okay, well that tells me all I need to know."
Yeah, it doesn't hurt that you have that parking structure right there where people can just sit out and watch it from there. I mean, it was just, I've never seen anything like it. I've been covering college sports for a long time. I even went to USC. I went to Syracuse. I went to some big programs, but I've never seen anything like it. It was so fun, and I can't wait till you can have fans back to enjoy the new complex on campus. You mentioned Tia Myrick. She was named the Big West Scholar Athlete of the Year out of 3,000 nominees. And she's the kid that got a concussion in her home state of country of Canada. She was in Thornhill, Ontario. She dropped out because of a concussion. And then how did she end up at Cal Poly?
So you're exactly right. She had a concussion. One of a bronze medalist from the '96 Olympics, the first beach volleyball, is a guy named John Childs, who's a friend of mine, and he's a Canadian and lives up in Toronto. And he and I were talking. This was, back in 2016 or 17 when I had first gotten. And he said, "Hey, there might be a gal who's a great beach player that might want to come play for you, actually." And gave me her name and stuff, and she's currently literally had gotten 7 months out of concussion since the concussion had happened, and she had dropped out for that entire year of school because she really was struggling with the concussion symptoms. And so she and I started a conversation, and a year and a half later, something like that, she ended up ultimately coming to Cal Poly and has been a real rock for us, not only on the court, but obviously in the classroom, being the Big West Scholar Athlete. I'm not exactly sure what her GPA is, but it's somewhere between 3.7, 3.8, and I know it's very good. She does really, really well in the classroom. So perfect gal who it really shows what we're trying to accomplish here as far as being Mustangs, and what that means is be really good on the sand or the hard court or whatever it is, but also kick some butt on the classroom front, and she's definitely done that.
You can find Cal Poly Beach Volleyball at Cal Poly Beach on social media. He's in his 6th year. I kind of think it's really still your 5th year, but it's officially your 6th year with the Cal Poly Mustangs. 20 years as a pro, an AVP 5-time tour champ, Olympic gold medalist. You teamed up with Ryan Doherty in 2013. And it's funny because on all of the information online about you, it says 2013 and then there's a dash. So even though we think you've retired, for some reason, the second part of that numerical order has not been put in. Is that deliberate because you're not really sure you're done, or is that just a loophole?
That must be a loophole, because I can assure you that I'm definitely done. Okay. I hadn't played for about a year and a half, something like that. I truly played with a bunch of guys on a men's net, etc. And I did so with some of our male practice players about a week and a half ago. And I couldn't, relative to what I was used to, I was slow. I couldn't jump. Still had good experience and touch on the ball and vision. And still won my fair share of games. At least I like to think that. Maybe they were being nice to me, but they were all jumping higher than I was. So yeah, I'm not coming back in any way, shape, or form. There's no retirement, post-retirement tour or something like that for this guy.
You gotta find out Tom Brady's nutritionist or something, because you're in his age bracket.
No kidding.
He's Todd Rogers, head coach of the Cal Poly Mustang Beach Volleyball team. Another addition to the Cal Poly program is your daughter, Hannah, who transferred from TCU and is now playing with you here at Cal Poly. Was it just because she wanted to be closer to home? Is this the first time you've coached her? What's the story between you and your daughter?
I've coached her throughout her high school and formative years, whether that was soccer or volleyball or beach volleyball. So multiple times have coached her. So that wasn't a new thing for either of us. She wanted to be closer to home, and Cal Poly was a good fit in terms of the academic side of things, because she's kind of interested in the human side of kinesiology, physical therapy, that kind of stuff. They have a great major there that she was already at TCU for, and so was able to just kind of transfer over and not lose too much in the way of academic units and stuff. But being closer to home was something that was important to her. At the same time, for us, for my wife and I, it was more, hey, we don't want you to live at home, though. We'd like you to be an adult, and she was totally on board with that. So it worked out well. Now, our difficulties, we discussed them at length before she made that decision of, hey, we really got to do a good job of splitting the, hey, here's dad and daughter and that relationship, and here's coach and player and that relationship. And without question, it has crossed that line by both of us. But we both try and do a really good job of circling back and making sure that we talk that through and make sure that doesn't haunt us.
Yeah, it still has to be cool, even though it is a struggle and a challenge. As a dad, to have one of your kids on your team must be pretty cool.
It is. I mean, I get to see her, almost every day, give her a hug, kind of a thing. So, yeah, it's in my opinion, at least, it's definitely a blessing.
He's the head coach of the Cal Poly Mustang Beach Volleyball team, Todd Rogers, on the CJ Silas Show this past weekend. A nice weekend, beating University of Tampa, Georgia State, and Southern Miss. One loss over the weekend to Florida State. But something that stood out for the weekend in my mind, and I'm sure it did for you, is a first-time teammates. Amy, I think it's Ozzy and Jalen Lombard. They hadn't played together before. They're in the number 2 spot, and they had a big opening weekend together. How did you know that chemistry was going to work with Amy and Jalen?
We've mixed it up a lot just during practice, getting a lot of different people playing with one another. My theory and thought process behind that, because it's not necessarily the normal one. You want to get them together so they can create the chemistry for weeks at a time, if not months at a time, if you have the ability to do so. But in our current COVID world, people are getting quarantined all the time, not because they got COVID, but they had contact tracing. And so they're out for 2 weeks. And I told the team back in the fall, look, you're going to play with a lot of different partners, and you're going to try and get as comfortable with as many people, because at any point in time, someone could have to quarantine, and now you can't. Your partner you've been training with for 2 months is out of commission for 2 weeks. Nothing because of what she did. She just happened to be in the wrong room at the wrong time with the wrong person. So that was kind of my thought process to it. They had played a little bit. There was a few little struggles and bumps about a week and a half ago when they were kind of getting their feet wet together. But they're both go-getters, and they figured it out. And, yeah, they've played great. They're both really comfortable with one another, really enjoy playing with one another, which is kind of half the battle with beach volleyball. If you really don't like your partner for some reason, then it's tough sometimes to play with them. So it's kind of like a marriage that way, I guess you could say, or dating. So I'm super proud of them. They've come together as a really, really strong team. And, yeah, I think, if I recall correctly, I thought someone said they got Big West Pair of the Week, I think.
Yeah, I think they did. That's so cool. And now you're down in L.A. to take on 2 of the best teams in the country in UCLA and USC tomorrow. When you started coaching Cal Poly and you'd been an assistant at Santa Barbara, we hear a lot of the times, especially if you've been a champion before, you spent 3 different times in your life at the Olympics. You really have spent time as an athlete at the highest level, and then you come to a school and you're given a program that really is just beginning, because we haven't had beach volleyball at Cal Poly for a long time. And you come in and you're thinking, I'm guessing, because Steve Sampson said this to me about soccer as well, and he's been at the highest level, that I didn't come here just to coach Cal Poly volleyball. I didn't come here just to coach Cal Poly soccer. And now you're one of the best teams in the country, taking on 2 of the best in Southern California. And you probably know all the coaches and all the assistant coaches just because you're a California guy. How did you get from where you were as a player through Santa Barbara and now at Cal Poly with a team now and this complex? I mean, Todd, you've really done a lot, and I'm sure you're not satisfied. But going down to play in LA, USC, and UCLA, and you're going to compete with them. How did you get here?
I mean, part of it is a confluence of, fortunate events. A lot of it is hard work, and a lot of it's not me that was the hard-working person on that front. It was a lot of people behind the scenes that are making things happen. It started with a phone call from Sam Crossan, the former indoor coach at Cal Poly, that it's like, hey, we played against each other, and he said, Raji, what's up? How you doing? One of those kind of phone calls. Hey, what are you going to do after you're done playing? You're 41 years old now, and have you thought about that? And I said, yeah, I'm going to be retiring after the 2016 season. That's my plan. I'm going to, start pursuing coaching. And he had called me in 2015. He said, hey, what do you think about coaching Cal Poly Beach team? I went, well, yeah, I'd be totally interested. And so we kind of did a part-time where I came up and wasn't there probably about 90% of the time because I was still active in 2016, still playing. So I did have to miss a couple of the duels that we had at that point in time to just see if it would work. And the gals on the team, it was mostly indoor gals at that point in time, enjoyed what I had to say and teach. And from there, it just kind of kept snowballing forward. And again, I have been as a player to the pinnacle. And for me, coaching, I don't see a reason why not to go to the pinnacle. And it's kind of one of the things I tell our team all the time is, look, you want to win an NCAA championship here, and we're all on board on that front. So why not do the best you can in the classroom? Why not do the best you can in your personal relationships? Why not set on down the road? And I think that's taken hold. And now we're competing against, like you said, the UCLAs and the USCs of the world that our budget compared to theirs is probably a lot less. But we have some great boosters that have made our facility and our program possible. And so there's a litany of people to thank. It's not by any means just me. I think I was probably just kind of the first snowflake that fell, and then it's kind of just created its own snowball down the hill, and here we are now.
How important is the beach volleyball complex on campus for your recruiting?
It's big. We didn't have that before, and right before COVID hit, every recruit that came up, even if they were, can't even talk to them because they're too young type of stuff. You hear back, oh my gosh, that is the most amazing facility. That is, I want to play, for the Mustangs, because that facility, that kind of stuff. So it really is a huge recruiting advantage. And then the recruits are smart, just like our players. They realize that, wow, now it's just I walk outside the office or the training room or the locker room or all the facilities are right there. Whereas before, we were using the rec, which wasn't too far away, but we had some constraints on how many courts we can use. Or we had to go to Pismo Beach, which is awesome. And the folks at Pismo have been amazing for us. Thank you, Ernie Santa Cruz, actually. He's been the boss on that front. But it's still a 15-minute drive. It requires them to drive. It takes more time. And to come back and go to the training room and get work, it's difficult. So both as a recruiting advantage as well as a team advantage and just making life a lot simpler for all of these gals has been huge. And again, just can't thank the Swanson family enough for really helping facilitate. And there were a lot of families that facilitated as well. It wasn't just them. But in my book, it's, to me, and granted, I totally rose-colored lenses on this one, it's the premier facility in the country. That's just my personal opinion, and I am totally jaded, but I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty epic, and hopefully before the season is over this year, you'll have at least maybe 25% of the fans allowed there. The Cal Poly Beach volleyball team is 3-1 on the season, heading south to take on the Bruins of UCLA and the Trojans of USC. Head coach Todd Rogers on the CJ Silas Show. You've been part of 3 Olympics in Athens, in Beijing, and in London. Last year when COVID hit everything, the Japanese Olympics, the Summer Olympics, were moved to this year. And here we are, early March, not that far away from the end of June when athletes are supposed to start heading to Japan. What's your gut feeling about us having an Olympics in Japan this year?
I feel like it's going to happen. I mean, I've talked to a lot of the players that are looking at going. In fact, I saw Nick Lucena, who's playing with my old partner, Phil Dalhauser. His wife is the head coach, Brooke Niles of Florida State. So I saw him this weekend and chatted with him about what it looks like for him personally, as well as what it looks like for the Olympics. So the sentiment from the players is that, yeah, it's going to happen. I think the biggest concern for the players, and this is probably across the spectrum of sports, is how many opportunities are we going to have to compete before going to the pinnacle event of potentially all of their careers. And I hadn't really thought about that, but then talking to the athletes, I realized, wow, yeah, a lot of these a lot of these athletes will only have a handful at best. One, to be able to qualify if there's not an Olympic qualifier, which for a lot of sports there are not, and two, just to kind of practice their craft. Fortunately, most everyone is kind of on the same page on that one, so there isn't going to be a team or a country that has a major advantage. But I feel pretty comfortable saying that I think it's going to happen. Is it going to be a normal one? No, not even close. But at least these athletes are going to be able to play. And, you know, with all the unrest in our world right now, we need an Olympics. You know, that brings, you know, sports brings people together like nothing else. And my hope is that the 2021 Olympics in Japan will do that across the world, and the respective countries within that world.
Before I let you go, I do want to just give the listeners of the CJ Silas Show a visual on how you're handling COVID on campus. I've asked all the coaches so far of the spring sports that I've talked to, are you potting up your kids in their dorms, in like freshman, sophomore, junior? How are you doing it? Are you using masks at everything? And how do you keep it going with testing? And people want to know that part.
We're getting tested twice a week and have been getting tested twice a week since January, since winter quarter started. Anyone that's essentially on campus, which we practice on campus, has to have that. So that's an ongoing thing. Out of all of my players so far in the winter quarter, we had one test positive in the summer, so when she was at home, one in the fall, and then two so far, one during the Christmas, December break, and then one, actually my own daughter, who got COVID during this short January. She got it February months of practice. Our sport isn't like basketball or wrestling where there's a lot of close contact. You're outside. Usually the elements are blowing things around. So it's a lot safer on that front. I am not requiring them to wear masks when they're playing. I couldn't even imagine, to be honest with you, trying to wear masks, running around in the sand in the hot sun. That would just be miserable, I think. So not requiring on that front. Do constantly have to remind the entire team, hey, you guys, when I'm talking to you, let's just be cognizant of social distancing. We're out in the open, so, we don't necessarily need masks per se, but let's not be huddled together. Let's make sure we're constantly social distancing, and that's tough for a team. I'm sure the other coaches have expressed that. They want to come together, and they want to do the things as a team together, and yet we're constantly telling them, hey, spread apart, spread apart, spread apart. That's a rough one. So we're doing our best to maintain the strictures of the county, the state, the country, and the NCAA, but at the same time still keep that team camaraderie and team spirit intact.
And then they go out and they go to the world. They go to class. They go back to their dorms. They go back to their apartments. How do you get it through their minds? And I've asked every coach this too. How do you get them to understand the significance and the impact what they do away from practice and away from school has on everybody else on the team?
I basically say, look, I won't control you, and I'm not even interested in controlling you, but just recognize what your actions will do. We just gave a bunch of scenarios of this could happen. If someone does this, if you go to a party and, you're mingling with 100 people, there's almost, I wouldn't want to say 100% chance, but there's a high chance that someone there has COVID. And if you just happen to be standing next to someone you don't know, and they could be, not even have any symptoms whatsoever, they're asymptomatic, and then all of a sudden you get COVID, and then you come to practice, and all of a sudden you're hanging around with your roommates, all the different scenarios, that's going to have an impact on more than just you. So just recognize that this isn't just about you, and really that's what team is about, right? It's not the I. There's no I in team kind of thing. So I've been really comfortable with the gals that have been either put in quarantine or gotten COVID. It's pretty much been, a gal goes and she's studying with someone who 3 days later gets COVID. And it's kind of, you can't even try and punish something like that because you're doing all the right things, and it's someone you trust and maybe they weren't masking up. Could they have masked up? Yes, but there's that quality of life as well. And I think sometimes that's lost within our COVID world at this point in time, as my personal opinion. So I just really tell them to be smart. Be like you are in the classroom, which they're pretty darn smart. Be like you are on the court, which they're pretty darn smart and pretty darn good as well. And if you do that, then you'll take care of your business, and us as a team, as a whole, will ultimately be in a really safe spot and a good spot.
It's really interesting because we as athletes, and I didn't play at a level that you did, but I've been an athlete my whole life as well. And I was out for a run today with a girlfriend, and we were 6 feet apart, and we're running through the hills and talking about it and how dramatic it is for 19, 20, and 21-year-olds to have to be so confined and isolated. But when we look back, it is just a little blip in time. It's really going to be small when we look back on our lives. Remember 2020 and into 2021, that pandemic and how awful it was, but it's just so hard as adults to get it into those kids' heads. We were there. We didn't do anything we were supposed to do. We were athletes. We didn't even know about nutrition in our early 20s. We didn't know how to take care of our bodies and hydration and cryotherapy and all the things that you use now. And just to see how hard it is for them, and realizing what an accomplishment it will be, Coach Rogers, when you stay at this high level and you've got most of your team the whole season. It's going to be a huge accomplishment. So I wish you the best, and I think you're going to do it.
Well, thank you very much, and I agree with you. It is a blip, but when you're only lived 18 years, that blip seems really, really long. When you're pushing 50 like myself, it's like, oh yeah, that's nothing, you guys. But it's all relative, right?
Yeah, exactly. And when this whole blip is over, you got to come back in studio.
Sounds good to me. I'm down with that.
All right, Coach Rogers, I appreciate it. Good luck against USC and UCLA, and hopefully you'll have some fans in the new complex before the season's over. Good luck. Thanks so much for giving me so much time on the CJ Silas Show. I sure appreciate you.
Thank you, CJ. And you take care as well.